Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Toastmaster, although flattery may not get you anywhere. Thank you. My job as General Evaluator is to evaluate everyone who hasn't been evaluated so far. I'm going to start with that rather second order thing at Toastmasters, where I'm going to evaluate the evaluators. And I'm going to start with Lissy, evaluating Cassandra. What I liked about Lissy was she straight in said the goal of his speech was humour. And I'm going to evaluate it in terms of the humour. So well done for that. I think she had an opportunity to even take that further, as Cassandra had made a few disparaging comments about certain evaluations she might have seen to do with high heels, chakras and auras, and maybe to have incorporated that and show that you can give a really, really good evaluation, which is what she did. She was so positive and supportive. She gave solid recommendations, so well done to Lissy on that. Second, we have Josh evaluating Mamma Mia. Josh very much stuck to the goals, and I appreciate that. That's what you do as an evaluator. As somebody from outside, I noticed something you might not have noticed, was I felt he was a little bit evaluating Mama on how she is generally. So he talked about how she's always like this, and we've seen her doing that. And as an evaluator, I think it's better to stick to what you saw tonight. Also, maybe it came over a little negative. Maybe something to consider, perhaps knowing Mama, he knows that's what's appropriate. But some really good recommendations, and I think the idea of building in more personal stories to build credibility was a good idea. We had Catherine then evaluating Rachel. Now, what I liked here about Catherine was that she had spoken to Rachel clearly before the meeting, and that had led to the kind of evaluation she did. What I would say is that this was meant to be, I think, an icebreaker, and there was something in there about it being an icebreaker. Now, I know we're all going to do more icebreakers. I've done 3 now, 1 in 1995 and 2 in the last year. We're going to do a lot more icebreakers. Should we just ignore it, though, and say it's not an icebreaker, it's kind of an international speech in disguise? I don't know. As an icebreaker, I think what we had so well from Rachel tonight was she did introduce herself, so maybe give some of that. But she had really, really listened, and it was a very difficult speech to evaluate because it was so strong and so personal. Right, the roles of the meetings, starting with our Toastmaster, Robert. What I liked about Robert this morning was he took charge of the meeting, not just from when he was standing on stage, but beforehand. He was meeting everyone, he was in charge. He emailed me last night. This was his meeting, and he was going to make the most of it. He was a little bit distracted by a latecomer and lost his place at one point, but other than that, really no issues at all. I would also just mention as well, we are talking about pathways, maybe an opportunity to talk about the fact you had a pathways speech in some of the different manuals. But what I love most about Robert is he introduces people. He knows about them, he comes up with a valuable introduction for that individual, and it's unique. I particularly like the Kanye West reference to Della. Very nice indeed. Our timekeeper, Mario. Excellent job, strong stance, in control from the start, very much in charge. Opportunity maybe to show his flags and ring the bell beforehand so that you know what's coming up, particularly for the guests. But he had his props. I love this big thing here. You know exactly what you're dealing with. And I also think the fact that he acknowledged Carol at the end for the support was very nice as well. And it's important that we recommend that we are appreciative to people who've supported us. So well done on that one. Neil. Now, Neil as our guest introducer. Now I have to say, and it's perhaps a bit naughty, when he came up here, the way he was dressed this morning, he did look a little bit like a cruise director. And I was expecting to be doing some stretch exercises. And do you know what? That's exactly what he gave us. He was very much in charge of the deck, in charge of the ship, as it was about to set sail. He led us extremely well. He answered the question himself. He kept the question nice and simple. Possibly a little bit of opportunity to say why we really value guests, maybe something along those lines. But other than that, lovely, warm, and people felt very, very welcomed. Moving on to Della, our table topics master. Energetic, friendly, and kept it going. Really did keep it going. I would warn that we normally say at Toastmasters, we don't talk about religion, sex, or politics. We certainly talked about politics. I think there was a touch of sex in there as well. But you have to be careful with that because we don't want to have a sort of polemic or have any arguments about what we're saying. But I think he got away with it. And the way he got away with it was a range of questions that could be interpreted the other way, and people actually did interpret them another way. So well done for that. And he kept it going, and I thought the discipline was very strong within the session he did. Our interviewer, Luke. Very good question, and what I liked was how he linked it together. Maybe just say, this is why I'm doing this. We've something to say. We've heard these speakers, they've talked about something, now let's find out who they are, just so we have a sense of why it was. And obviously it was difficult with the fact that he'd been slightly forgotten, but maybe just connecting to that. Having said that, he really engaged the speakers. He really got them going, and we got to meet them very well indeed. Sabrina, our new president, she is going to get so much feedback this year. I apologise that I'm going to start, and it's all going to be really contradictory as well, because lots of people are going to say, do it this way and do it another way. So feel free to ignore everything I say. But engaging, humorous. I've never seen anyone ask anyone to put their finger up their nose. Brilliant! One thing I would recommend would be get some biographical details of the Toastmasters so that you can introduce them. Robert did that so well, I think largely from his experience of the people. Maybe just get something so that you can warm up the room, especially in the morning club. I think it's an invaluable thing. But got the meeting off and really set it off on the tone of, we are going to stick to time. So in the last few seconds that I have, let me say I think this is a fabulous club. I think this is a club that has a really good energy, a really good ethic, and it's a great pleasure to be here. In terms of the meeting, and I mentioned both Richard and Sven, very well greeted. Maybe put a note downstairs to say where the actual meeting area is, if that's allowed, and maybe have a jug of water on a really, really hot day. I understand there are some restrictions about that. But very warm and friendly meeting. You walk into the room, you feel that you're welcomed, people just came up to me. It's a great pleasure, and thank you, and I do hope you'll have me again sometime. Thank you very much.